House. I welcome you all on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for joining today. So I would take you through the session flow, how it goes about, and then give introductions about our speakers to the attendees. So having said that, so today's topic for session today is about the lean canvas model and how do you work at the ideation stage, which is a very interesting topic. So I would request all the attendees to be on mute and then have a Q&A session at the later stage post the discussions. So, so the key speakers will have 10 minutes each, Mr. Kashyap and Mr. Sarfaraz, to talk around this topic during the moderator session. And then we will have an intro session from Mr. Sanjeev K. Kumar, who's the CEO and co-founder of Kuberans House, who's going to talk about Kuberans House ecosystem and various other initiatives. And then we will have a Q&A session, like I said again. Having said this, I think I'll begin definitely with the introductions of our keynote speakers today. Hey guys, today we have Mr. Kashyap, who's been the key member of the startup ecosystem, starting with Startup Grind, which is a great initiative bringing entrepreneurs across various segments and regions, leading the Hyderabad segment. And also, he's been a part of various founding initiatives. He's been founder of various companies on the digital transformation. He's been a Draper Fellow himself and has been a key advisor at a couple of other foundations. I hope I've just given a brief about you, Kashyap, but definitely if there's anything I missed out, you can elaborate them, definitely. And we also have Sarfaraz today. He is also the co-founder of many companies. He's taken up this new initiative of Startup Times, which basically brings the community of startup entrepreneurs together to voice their opinions and have conversations around it. And he's been the chief operating officer of SM DevOps and various other initiatives. So that's about our keynote speaker's introduction. And also about our other important speaker is Mr. Sanjeev, who's definitely been the powerhouse of Kuberans House and what Kuberans House does, a diverse set of media entertainment and reality show different initiatives. Close to around 3 decades of experience, 100 shows plus under his belt, and continuing further stronger with various initiatives. He's been the visionary and the brainchild behind Kuberans House and its initiatives. Thank you, sir, for joining, and I thank all the keynote speakers as well for joining today. So we'll kickstart the session right now. So I'll start with Mr. Kashyap. Mr. Kashyap, so there has been one frame of mind when it comes to creating a canvas during your ideation stage. And what point what point do we decide to write a canvas for ourselves? And when do you think is the right starting phase, of having a canvas? Like the question is around what should be the should-haves and must-haves in our canvas.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Thanks, Rohit. Intro and all the background and the context you set up. So I think when you talk of canvas, right? I mean, it doesn't matter which phase you're in. Typically, I think the mistake or the most common thing that I made, as a founder was we always wait until something gives us feedback. But I think ideally, whether it's lean canvas or otherwise, I think you just it's a very simple thing. Like you define the problem, you have the solution that you're trying to solve, and you have the unique value proposition, and then so it's an iterative process. Like most of the processes, there's nothing absolutely disruptive about lean thinking or lean model canvas. I think it was earlier started by Toyota production system in Japan. So I think it's a very old, I would say, model that is adopted in the industry, in the automotive sector. And then you had great thought leaders like Eric Rice, who came up with lean thinking and the lean startup methodology. But I think it comes very naturally, and I think a canvas right from your ideation. So if you're a startup, ideally with you have that aha moment, right? I mean, most of us, we say aha, like we have an idea, right? And let me tell you like what really happens. I mean, this is the founder's dilemma, or the innovator's dilemma, as they call it. So the moment you come up with that aha moment and you think you have found something, right, you just get overboard. I mean, you do not really do your basic market research, or you get overboard with the fact that it's the inner ego, right? I mean, you think it's a great idea, and then you start talking to some people, you start building. So I think one of the things that helped in my case, after one or two kind of learnings and failures, is that we start thinking too much about the product without validating whether it's right or not. So the lean methodology actually helps you in building the right thing versus building it rightly. Understand this phrase, right? Building the right thing versus building it rightly. So most people, most people actually, when they actually come up with this idea and when they think it's novel enough, most of the times the unique value proposition part is very weak. The solution seems very interesting. The problem seems very evident because they see the problem and they instantly find the solution. But most of the times where we go wrong as founders or innovators is whether it makes sense to scale, whether it is a marketable idea in the particular geography with the particular demography that you're in, and all that. So all these are very important considerations, and usually what happens is after you start doing things and spend like X amount of time, then you get feedback from some mentors or somebody in the industry, and then you realize that there are some wrong assumptions in terms of scaling, there are wrong assumptions in terms of how you thought, how big was the market. So usually we make assumptions in the size of the market opportunity, or just with respect to the customer segmentation. So people usually don't get the customer segmentation very right. I mean, when you make a product, you feel it can cater to X or Y segment, but then usually what happens is when you go for a little ahead, you realize that segment is probably wrong. So these are some of the things that one needs to have in mind before you get any further. And to answer your question, purely in terms of when does a startup or an ideation, get into a lean canvas, I say day one, right? The moment you have an idea, you just start with the lean canvas because it makes your mind so clear. So you get so much of clarity of thought the moment you put everything on a canvas.
Right. So, and do you see a propulsion of underestimating or overestimating your goals as a startup when you do a canvas? How do you want to take that up? I think that I would take this question to Sarfaraz. So, with this, right, from your continuation, I would take this up to Sarfaraz. Sarfaraz, with continuation to conversation of Kashyap, how do you want to see that evaluation in terms of underestimating or overestimating your goals as a startup? Let's say day one, and how do you evaluate that? Yeah, please go ahead.
So see, whenever someone is starting his own idea, usually he's having a very big goals, right? So everyone wants to become a unicorn. So they and for them it's very usual that they see everyone as their customer. So the product is yours, the idea is yours. So you always overestimate that idea, right? So if you use the lead with time when you are going with your startup. So initially the entire expectation is always very high in terms of people which I have interacted, and if I talk about myself as but when the time when you go into the market, you look into the aspects of the business, then you understand that you have to set your goals.
Sarfaraz. Sarfaraz, some disturbance. Cannot hear you. So for us, there is some disturbance.
Yeah, I think the internet speed perhaps is a little lesser, I guess. It's with respect to the internet speed, I think.
Am I audible now?
It's fine, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just talking about the expectations which we have initially with the product. So we always overestimate our product. We always overestimate the customer segment because initially we always think that everyone is our customer, which is not true, right? We all have to find our niche market and then work upon that.
Okay. Do you have something to showcase? Sir,
yeah, of course.
Yes. Hi, sir. I can see you there. Hi, sir. Sanjeev, sir. Hi, sir. Sarfaraz has something to present to us, to the audience as well. So,
yeah,
just keeping a couple of minutes.
Sarfaraz,
Okay. Okay, sure.
Sarfaraz, please go ahead.
You have to give him share, I guess. Screen share. Is he presenting on screen?
I think yes, sir. Yeah, he's going to present on screen. So Kashyap, while that happens, can you share your experiences of creating a canvas as a, as an entrepreneur yourself?
Yeah.
So could you share your experiences, what happened, and then we will definitely have Sarfaraz as well. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, sure. So the canvas, right? I mean, you have a very standard looking thing where you have a problem solution, USP, and customer segment, and the cost and revenue. The basic canvas. So a typical business model canvas. And what is, I think, a little different in a lean canvas. The way I look at it is, you always start with the USP, right? The unique value proposition. And my experience has been that most of the times, people define the value proposition into again look into the problem and the solution. I think this is put together. Now, in the early stages, there comes a very critical point when there's a dilemma. There's a founder's dilemma. Most of the times, to be very honest, it's whether the problem that I'm solving is really a problem or not. I think in the very early days, right? I think we have too much of bias to kind of towards the problem that we're trying to solve. And without proper validation, I think there is no room to do the best in the. And we, typically write down a little more breakdown or breakup of, say, what do you mean by mobile communication? How can you improve the engagement of, say, the stakeholders in a college, for example, students and faculty and administration and parents. The moment you come up with this, so every time you come up with a problem, typically what happens is you have an insight. So you come up with a genuine problem only if you have a genuine insight. So I think founders without genuine insights would never, that's a strong claim I have, but founders without a strong observation insight would never be able to come up with a good problem statement, because it would be a half-cooked problem statement. Because you can only come up with a solution if you have a problem. So everything comes, finally to the centerpiece of the lean canvas, which is your USP, which is a unique value proposition.
USP.
So unique value proposition. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point that you pointed out in terms of the the right context to be looking at when it comes to the value proposition, and that value proposition is equated to the problem statement and the solution you're bringing in, right? So how are these three sets of triangle kind of matching the action? But I would.
So is my screen visible?
Right. Yes. So for us, could you connect back again? There's some issue.
I think now I might be audible.
Yes, please go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay. Vanshika, please change the slide. Fine. So let's discuss more in detail about the lean canvas. So our learning objective would be trying to understand the entire concept of lean canvas. Then we are going to acquire the knowledge of 9 building blocks of lean canvas. Then we are going to learn how to apply the lean canvas model on your own business idea. And then we'll discuss a little about how to ideate so that you can create a successful business. Vanshika, please change the slide.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so before I start with the lean canvas model, we all should know that is it very important, right? So yes, I myself have applied lean canvas model in 2 of my startups, and believe me, the chances of success always increased. Okay, so there are some of the things which the lean canvas model helps us. It reduces the chances of failure because you have a clear concept of the entire idea. It gives you the better understanding of your business. Okay, and it helps you to be focused on key aspects, right? Because whenever we start any of the idea or any of the startup, the problem is that we are always biased in the thinking, right? So we don't think on a very holistic approach. We don't never take a holistic, right? So it is very important to create either any other business model or a single page business plan like lean canvas to get the complete understanding, to get the crisp of the idea, to get the crisp of the market. So this will help you in the execution because once you frame the entire idea, once you frame your model, then you have to execute properly. For better execution, you have to be very clear about all the aspects of your model, right? So that's why I myself recommend that it is very important either you use lean canvas as a business model, but to take out time and work on this. And this model or this lean canvas 1 page slider is going to help you throughout your business life cycle.
Right.
So this is how the lean canvas model usually looks. So it has 9 different blocks. I'll be explaining very briefly each block. So the first block is the customer segment. Okay. So one thing which earlier also I told that most of us think that everyone is our customer. No, not everyone is our customer. There are only 2% or 3% of the entire market which actually is our customer. So you have to get the customer segment very properly. So you have to understand that which middle class, high class, lower class, which class of people are your customer segment, male or female are your customer segment, what kind of occupation do they have. So you have to brainstorm a lot about your customer segment. Then there's early adopters. So early adopters are basically those who are in a very need of your product, right? So they will be the first one who are going to start using your product. The second slide or the second block is the problem. So you have to list top 3 problems, not per se of your solution which you have created, but the entire industry or entire domain which is facing the problem. Okay, it is not actually possible to tackle all the problems, but the major problems which are there, your solution should tackle those, right? Then you have to note down the existing alternatives which are there in the market, right? For example, talk about the Ola Uber industry, right? The taxi industry. So we always had the existing alternatives like autos. We always had the existing alternatives like DTC bus and all those things. So you have to write the existing alternatives. Then the third is the revenue streams. Believe me, 90% of the startups, they fail because they have never brainstormed on the revenue part. They always think that, okay, I'll think about the revenue later on in life. But believe me, you should be crystal clear about the revenue streams which you have. There can be 2 types of revenues: the direct revenues which you charge from the customers, the indirect revenues like the advertisements or some kind of sponsors which you can get. So you have to think in each aspect of the revenue streams. Then you have to write the solution. So the solution which you are proposing, okay. And then you always have to cross check with the problems So you enlisted the problems, and then when you write a solution, you just check that how many problems are being solved. Okay. After writing the solutions, then you go with the unique value proposition. So, friends, unique value proposition is something which is very important aspect of any business, right? Because this is the reason why the customers are going to pay you. Okay, so you have to know what unique thing you are giving to the customers, because if your business does not have any unique value proposition, then nobody is going to pay for your service, right? So brainstorm a lot. The unique value proposition can be that your solution is 1/10 of the other solution right now existing in the market, or your solution is the first solution which is there in the market. So there can be a lot of different aspects of unique value proposition. Now, then you have to think about the channels, how you're going to reach to the customers. So there can be online channels through social media, through blogs, through websites. There can be offline channels like franchise shops, seminars. So you have to think a lot. You have to brainstorm a lot. You have to write down each channel which you can actually use in order to reach the customers, right? After the channels, we talk about the key metrics. So key metrics is actually very important in order to judge your performance, right? So for example, if I talk about startup times, so one of the very important key metrics is the number of unique visitors which are coming on my website, right? If I talk about any other business, the revenue they might be generating, that can be a key metric. So you have to list down the key metrics which is there in your business, because these key metrics will help you to know, are you going into the right direction or not, right? After the key metrics, we have the cost structure. So you can have the marketing cost, you can have the salaries, you can have the product development cost, you can have the cost on PR and all those things. So you write all the costs which are involved in your solution, in your organization. You go with the unfair advantage. So unfair advantage is something which makes you the best in the competition, right? So for example, it can be a patent. So you have created a technology which is patent protected, right? So that gives you an unfair advantage. You might have a very strong combination of experts in your team, an unfair advantage above all those competitors, right? So this actually are the 9 blocks. One have to brainstorm every day and fill it very thoroughly and cross-check and discuss with other people so that you improve. Vanshika, can you please change the slide? So this is a very simple solution of Ola Uber. So through this example, we can actually see that how you, you can write your own lean canvas model for your business. So when I talk about Ola Uber, it's a taxi service. So it's an on-demand taxi service. So their customer segments are not only passengers, drivers are also customer segments, right? So you have to think a lot, because in the initial business, so one of my startup is Dumpin, which is a recycling firm. So when I started my model, I thought that only people who are going to take my waste, so the people from where I'm going to collecting the waste, they are my customer segment. But no, the recyclers were also my customer segment. Why? Because they were the people who are going to pay me. The people from where I'm going to collect the waste, they were the vendors, not the customers, right? So you have to brainstorm a lot on the customer segment. The early adopters of Ola Uber were those who were using the public transport or taxi service. Now, when we go to the problem, earlier the taxi money for a very short drive as well. There were not a lot of cars available. We don't know about the profile of the driver. There was no review system there. There was no price transparency. So the same charge me 1,000. There were existing solution as public transport or the classic taxi services at that time. So the solution which Ola Uber gave, so the solution was a very cheap ride. It had a wide car network. It had an app. You can actually book the car. The drivers can actually work part-time, right? So they don't have to go and find the customers. So they can have 4 hours of work, 5 hours of work, because all the marketing and all the customer acquisition was done by Ola or Uber, right? Now their unique value proposition was all this solution, both for the drivers and for the passengers, were just in one app, right? The entire app gave the flexibility of earning to the drivers. It gives the transparency between the customers as well as the drivers, right? Also, it gives us the high security because now each of the rides which we are doing, it can be live tracked. Okay. Now, when we talk about the key matrices, so they have the number of users, they have the number of rides which they are doing, the number of income which they are, or the revenue which they are generating, commission which they are generating. The revenue stream was very simple. They were just taking 25% of the commission for each ride. Now they have expanded their revenue, so now they have some kind of advertisement as well in their segment. So they charge for those advertisement also. So the revenue stream always expands with the time when you start your product, right? Then the cost structure, they had their development costs, they had their salaries, they had their marketing costs. When we talk about their channels, so they were using word of mouth, they were doing the PR in all the social media, in all the newspaper, they were posting about this. Then they had the referral system as well. So initially we were getting 2 free rides or 3 free rides if we refer someone else. So these were the channels through which they were getting the customers. And now if I talk about the unfair advantage, so their main unfair advantage was the transparency and the low cost price which they were providing. So right now, if I talk about from East Delhi to airport, earlier the taxi driver was taking me $1,500, right? Now I book an Uber, I book an Ola, and I only get charged $500. If I take an auto also, it will charge me 400, right? So just spending a very marginal money, I'm getting a complete and different service, right? So that kind of reduction in the cost they have done. So that's their unfair advantage, which they did. And that's why they have actually disrupted the entire market. In the slide?
Right.
Now let's talk about ideation, right? So we all start with the idea. So how do we ideate? That's very important, right? So you create the lean canvas. First of all, you have to articulate. So you have to know yourself. You have to know who you are, what you do, what is your objective, right, from the start of which you are doing, and for whom you are creating the solution. You have to write these things. Then you have to deconstruct. So when you write it on a paper, then you go and think from different aspect. You think from the aspect of a customer, you think from the aspect of a VC investor, you think from the aspect of a common man who actually will not be using the service. And then you deconstruct the entire idea, then you reconstruct. You go into the market, you do the survey, you talk to a lot of people, you talk with different stakeholders, and then you create and reconstruct. You create, then you reconstruct. After doing this entire exercise for 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, sometimes it takes 100 times as well, you come up with a very great idea. Now, once you fix your idea, now you go and talk with different mentors, you go and talk with different experts in the industry, you take their feedback, right? You take their feedback, you improve the idea. And then the first day when you started with an idea, and after 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, or maybe 1 year, right, your final idea will have a huge difference, right? You will actually feel that huge difference on the idea which you started and the idea which you have come up with now. And then once you fix your idea, then you go and implement it with full power and full energy. Because once you start implementing, again go to the ideation phase, right? So if I have created a product, I have hired the resources, I have done the marketing, right? So I cannot change my product again, right? I cannot change the customer segment. So ideation is very important in life. You have to ideate, you have to hustle every day, right? In order to create that good idea, maybe it will take you just 5 days to create the good idea. Maybe it will take you 1 year, but it would be worth. Because once you start implementing, you will never get the time to go back and change your idea.
It was quite detailed and quite insightful. Thanks for bringing the examples of Ola and Uber as the key understanding, because I think both are quite in the same domain, and I think good that you detailed out giving an example, because it gives some more perspective and understanding about the startup canvas. So I think with this we will move on to our next introduction of Kuberans House and its process and evaluation and the benefits of being a part of Kuberans House for all the entrepreneurs across India who can be a part of this. I would request Mr. Sanjeev to take up this talk and discussion next. Sanjeev sir, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Govind. How are you doing, all of you? And Sarfaraz, that was very, I think, it was very informative to all the people who are here. And we actually, post this webinar on our social media pages. I think, people can look back. But the whole issue in terms of how, am I audible?
Yeah, Sanjeev.
Okay. People like Kashyap and Sarfaraz with Startup Grind and Startup Times bring in that kind of an expertise. I think, the kind of knowledge share that they have, been part of. It's a great, collaboration that we've done. As we've gone through Kuberans House, basically, we've understood this, this whole, when a canvas has to set a typical canvas, I think that is where the process. And, we've got some pitch decks which are half-baked. And so this has been a concern and a problem area. And, as that is one of the reasons why, we and correlate to them and little bit flesh out that idea as per se. So it's very important that any idea has been pitched properly, because purely from a VC point of view is a very important aspect. When you look at an idea from a VC point of view, I think the number one, they don't have the time years in the market, and number three, your idea has to be pitch perfect. So I think if you're looking at investment for any idea in whatever scale it is, and the kind of details that Sarfaraz and Kashyap shared, those are the technicalities of it. Apart from that, it should be a very investor friendly in terms of the model. That's very important element that we are actually wanting to impart to the community. Correlating the three webinars that we had, I think Kashyap spoke about the aha moment, which is a very inspiration moment. That is the first I. The aha is that the startup founder has himself got to be inspired about his own idea or about their own idea. The second part, which I think in one of the webinars Devang spoke, was the sampling part. I would call it the second eye. That could be the insight, where you sample your idea with a couple of friends and people around your community, and you get insights of how good your idea is. Apart from, doing the analysis and the kind of model check on your idea, as Sarfaraz had presented, this second part where you actually sample your idea is a very important part. And the third part, which I think, Rahul was stressing on, you have to identify the right kind of investor. Any investor would not be, ready. There was a member on that group, and he was talking about his idea, but he was generally saying that nobody is interested in that idea. He was talking about cancer cure, and Rahul intervened, and he said, you have to first identify the door which you want to knock. So I think these three parts are a very integral part of it. And as we go through this process of Kuberans House, we are understanding that, the kind of knowledge share and the kind of the thought process of ideas are not there. They need more forums, and they need more, looking up to people, and that is how they flesh out that idea and make it very VC friendly. So I am purely talking not as a startup, but a startup which looks out for investment, because that is the base of Kuberans House. We are looking at startups, who want to convert into enterprise and look out for, good funding from the market. And along with the funding, they bring a great level of insight and expertise, each of the VCs. So we've been very careful in, picking up our VCs on board, because they have to be proactive is what it is. Not only about the money, it is what they can contribute and, make the startup so much bigger. So, and as we speak, we are pleased to have Mahavir Sharma. He's called the Mahavir of Rajasthan Angel Network, and we are sharing it on the social media, and he's going to be our second Kubera. So purely from a Kubera point of view, that is what is Kuberans House. We have understood that every startup which comes up and which is looking for funding needs to be fleshed out in complete sense of how a VC would look at it, and that's a very, very important element that we should look forward. And I think the kind of expertise that Startup Grind and Startup Times and the entire ecosystem, which have been very friendly in the whole movement, I think it is going to be a great universe where we create great startups which get great investments.
Right, sir. I think that was very insightful in terms of the perspectives that you brought around conversations of other keynote speakers and the context of today.
Govind, you've been part of the entire valuation and the screening process, and we understand when we see the first half of the deck, it is so exciting to us, and when we move on to the second half where they are talking about how they want to go into the market and what is the kind of monies, then there is a little bit of a down. We feel bad about it. So I think that's very, very important that the entire deck in terms of the entirety, how you present it, is very, very important. Not just the idea; it has to be fleshed out whole and soul in terms of the business equation.
Mm-hmm. True, sir. True. I think this is the way the investor sees, because the investor also is also equally concerned or cautioned about his go-to-market, right? Where his go-to-market is understood through the canvas built by the founders in their early stage, right? So that translates into a business plan, business model, and a pitch deck, right? It's all a self-explained translation that happens over the entire discussion point. So I think the journey of an entrepreneur begins from day one with the canvas, converts it to a pitch deck to an investor, right? So that is the way we see things.
True.
So having said this, sir, could we go about the process of Kuberans House and the Kuberans House initiative to the audience, sir?
Yeah, basically we've got both the options open. We were very, very conscious about that fact that ideas should not be missed out. We were not only looking at the, a typical business model, enterprise, entrepreneur kind of stuff. We were also looking out for ideas. So, as I said, there would be a quantification of 70-30 or, 40-60. That depends on how well we go about the screening process. But there was a very, very conscious effort to have ideas presented on the show. We knew that VCs would not take up because it is half baked in the sense of the business model. But I think we wanted to do it because when we reached out to the VC fraternity and we had great talks, detailed talks with them, we realized that they were also looking out for ideas and wanting to incubate and accelerate them. But then not as a whole full-fledged investment, but in terms of support system. Because at the end of the day, it becomes an entrepreneur. It is an entrepreneur's dilemma, basically. So when a basic idea comes in and it is incubated well and it is fleshed out well, I think it is a great a startup to pitch. So I think the VCs also were pretty keen on having some ideas on board. But I think ideas give you a freshness in terms of thought, appeal, and that is that wow, or I would like to say Kashyap's word, which I liked very much, the aha moment. So some great ideas, you just go get back and say aha. So I think that's a very great thing. So I think we've consciously tried to have a equal kind of a balance. Almost a semi-equal kind of a balance between ideators and entrepreneurs. And ours is a complete website. You could log on. It's got details about it, and you go on pitching it. And as we've got close to 17,000 plus applications, and I think I would say around 20 to 30% are good to go in terms of pitching. But we need to analyze them and groom these startups. So we want to have them into the top 500, which we will be giving them scholarships. Fellowship certificates from Kuberans House. That's basically that you're good kind of a stuff, and you can go out in the market and reach out. And then this 500 startups will further be screened and brought into a 100 model, where these 100 would be called on to a workshop, where we want to do a 3-day workshop, which has got some of the best domain experts business faculty, and also chartered accountant, patent expert, legal experts. So we want to do a 3-day workshop with these 100 startups and groom them in a way that they can be, very solidly presented to, I am very proud to say that we have the best ensemble of, VCs today on Kuberans House. We've launched 2 and we have 6 more to go. But I think, we're sitting on one of the biggest desks of VC community in India. So when these 100 startups go and pitch to them, they should be so effective that no VC can refuse them. So we are trying to empower these startups so well and equip them so good that, they project a beautiful, a very valid presentation of their pitch, and they get converted into enterprise. Because at the end of the day, the show and the entire motivation and the entire process that we've gone through is only, successful if there is a, good conversion on the show. So we are ensuring the best possible way that we can help them, and so that, they're so strong and good startups get converted on the show.
All right, sir. I think this was great in terms of the insights and the understanding of Kuberans House and its process and its initiatives, connecting to the startup ecosystem, and how are we creating great value to the entrepreneur segment by bringing the best investor panels on board to evaluate and help them in funding the right ideas and the best ideas in the house. So having said this, I think we will take the next session, which will be quite short, but we will still take it up, which is the Q&A session. So I have some questions around which has already been answered, but I would request to have this little more interactive. So I think I would start this to Mr. Kashyap. Bhushan, are you here? Bhushan?
Yeah, Kashyap and Sarfraz, I have a small question for you. You could answer quickly. I mean, we see it from the Kuberans House point of view, but we are very keen to know from Sarfraz and from Kashyap also how the startup community is actually seeing Kuberans House, and from your point of view.
Okay. So so the startup community, there's a lot of importance right now in the startup community for the investments, right? And there are a lot of organization which does the investment, but nobody grooms the startups so that they get the investment properly. Okay, so we have to create this entire ecosystem. Like if we talk about the Silicon Valley, say the investment procedure, the entire ecosystem, the branding of startups, that next level. But in India, still we are growing to that stage, and I guess Kuberans House is doing a great job and is doing a great initiative to take this startup ecosystem to the next level, where we will be the startups will be featured in the national TV, right? Taking to the reality show, taking that such mass level where more than 16,000 people have applied for this funding event, right? So it is very important in aspect of now taking this entire sector, entire region of startups ecosystem in India to the next level. With Kuberans House and other players should now work upon. Was I audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kashyap, would you want to add in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting, for Sarfraz to complete.
Yeah,
I think.
Okay. Sarfraz, you have anything more to add to that, or?
No. That's
okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I look at Kuberans House is, like in a very naive way, probably if I have to put it, it's more like the Shark Tank's equivalent in India. I mean,
I
as
don't
a
want you to use that word. I don't want you to use that word, Kashyap. I think we should be called the Kuberans house. I mean, no, I
okay,
mean
yeah.
it's a process that we set across, and and it's a very very specialized show. I mean, I think most of them will realize when it is finally on air and how different we are from the model that you had said. But I think
Yeah.
I mean that's what it is. Yeah. Please go.
Yeah, I do understand the spirit of it. I mean, if I just have to,
Correct.
take some analogy, right, as a simple analogy. I think the best part about Kuberans House, in fact, is it's not just for proven businesses or people with business models, but also, for ideators. You have two sections where people can apply. I think that's a very innovative. I mean, you said you have done it purposely or you have done it after deliberations. So I think it gives a chance to a lot of people, perhaps with very good ideas, but not yet proven business models. So one approach, I mean, one of the things that we as startup ecosystem enablers, I think as startup grind, I think it's very hard for us to also figure out good startups in terms of investable value proposition. So I would say, I mean, what Kuberans House certainly is trying to do is solve a much bigger problem of how to give a platform to people, right? In terms of a platform where people can come share their idea, perhaps, or get grooming or get inputs and feedback. Otherwise, the investor ecosystem is pretty hostile. People are not entertained. The moment you go to an investor, they might just send you thank you so much.
Correct.
Uh, you know. So I think it's
Sarfaraz, could you mute yourself, please, Sarfaraz?
needed. Yeah, I think now it's much better. I think there was some echo coming on. So yeah, I was saying that for any startup, right, that comes and that comes to a particular phase and they want to get their idea validated through an investor, or they send their pitch deck to an investor. It's a very tricky phase. I mean, it's a phase where they often get demoralized by getting some replies, but nonetheless, I mean, the ones who perceive and the ones who are have the perseverance, they go a little forward and keep iterating and keep going forward. But where I see a model like Kuberans House really helping those startups is one segment of startups that either do not have the right visibility or the platform, where they need some sort of the platform itself can help as a validation, which otherwise was never possible.
Correct.
Right? Because especially it has a huge audience where the audience is the best judge, right? I mean, you don't need an investor to say yes or no. If people actually have a faith in them, then automatically it's a self-validation sort of a thing. So that's a beautiful thing for a lot of startups, which otherwise was not possible in the normal format.
True. Agreed. Govind, you can take questions. Thank you, Kashyap. Thank you, Kashyap.
Yeah. So I think yes, sir. I think I will make this interactive. Bhushan, you had a question to ask about how do I find a tech co-founder? Do you want to elaborate that to Mr. Kashyap?
I request anybody who's asking questions, not to actually use this as a pitching session. It could be, trying to find out as to what are the nuances and how you can correct yourself. I mean, I think that is what, because we've had a few pitching sessions. I think the best is to come on national television very soon. So yeah, let's keep this less of a pitching session. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Bhushan Sonar, do you have a question? Please have it. You can unmute yourself and have this question posted to Kashyap or Sarfaraz. Bhushan, are you here? Okay, I think I'll post the question on behalf of Bhushan in that case. So Kashyap, the question is around how does a non-tech founder find a tech co-founder, right? During these. I mean, that's one of the most critical questions for a non-tech co-founder, starting a tech company and I don't have a co-founder. So how do I find them? Where do I find them? Questions around?
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. I mean, it reflects my own story, right? I found a tech co-founder. So I think
I can resonate that, but over to you. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the ways that for me it was I was lucky that my tech co-founder was in the same university that I kind of did my master's in Germany. So I kind of requested him. That is not an average story. I mean, most of the times it's very hard to find a friend or somebody from your university or college. And if you are lucky enough, you will find. Otherwise, I think my recommendation would be to attend a lot of these, accelerator or incubator meetups, right? So every city, I think if you're in India or outside, you have a lot of these meetups, or you have a lot of these tech meetups. So I typically, I'm an engineer by degree, but a business guy by my profession, as a founder. But I don't code, but otherwise I do understand the language of tech to an extent, because I have some interest in the emerging technology area. So what I do is, even if I am zero at coding, I keep attending a lot of these interesting sessions on the future of coding, or no code platforms, or how the future of tech is evolving. So a lot of these companies, companies like Google, companies like Microsoft, they do host hackathons. They do host a lot of interesting sessions. So even if you really don't understand tech, you can just drop by to one of those sessions, and you typically find very passionate folks in technology. You can always pitch them your idea, and you can see how they react. So I've seen like at least 4 to 5 of my startup community friends, I think, they found it's called tech co-founder dating. So it's a founder dating sort of thing. You go and you kind of pitch your idea, and if they like you, they come without a pay, if you're lucky, because some of these tech guys, they earn a lot, so you don't need to really pay them upfront. You can give them partly equity, or whatever works out. But typically, I would call it a tech co-founder dating. So you have to go out to events. You have to, keep meeting more people outside. But during the current pandemic time, there are not many physical events outside. So what I do is, take a premium account in LinkedIn and keep speculatory emails. By having a keyword search of people who are in tech, in product, in your area, whatever area you're looking for. If your expertise is not very specific and it's kind of generic, then you would find a lot of folks. If you have a very generic, a very specific sort of a requirement, you can go to specific groups on LinkedIn. Like, for example, if you are building something in artificial intelligence or machine learning or data science or blockchain or cybersecurity, you have a lot of forums and groups on LinkedIn where you can go and post. You can spend a little time, perhaps, on Quora, to go to the right kind of audience. So I'm sure if you're not physically going outside and meeting people, you can do the digital outreach. But certainly you have to get your strategy right in terms of what you are looking for. But whether it's physical or digital, you have to date people. So that's the only way I see. Yeah.
Right, well put.
We are actually, ideated by Govind. We are soon, Kuberans House is soon going to come with a startup tender kind of an app. It is ideated by Govind. Yeah, we are actually looking at that. We built a prototype model also. So I think that's where it's coming from. Yeah, dating is the right word. Yeah, I think there should be dating around the startup community. Yeah.
Right, sir. So I think, Sarfaraz, this is a question from my side. I'm just also taking this question from the audience, but I think he's not here. But also, how do you establish a strong how do you establish a strong ecosystem around your idea?
Okay, so establishing a strong ecosystem around your idea, first of all, it's very important. You have to know the every aspect of the idea. Okay, right. So, for example, if I talk about the Startup Times, so Startup Times is a community for the entire entrepreneurs or the people or the aspirants or the investors. So in order to create the ecosystem, you have to provide them the value, right? So you have to understand that you have to connect people, you have to provide them value with different services which you do, or with different proposition which you offer. And by connecting with different people, by providing them the values, by interacting with them, by taking the feedbacks, soon you will see that the network which you have started with, that would grow. It would grow, and there'll be a lot of third-party factors and third-party people who will be coming, and they will be creating the ecosystem more large, right? So for that, you have to start with few segments where you are going to push yourself, where you are going to provide them the values, where you are going to connect them properly, so that each and every person get benefit from others. One simple example is that a lot of time where two people who got featured in startup times, they wanted to interact with themselves, right, in order to do some kind of business. And startup times provided an opportunity for them to interact, to talk, and to grow their business. Like, so you have to create such kind of environment where everyone can help each other. And by creating that smooth environment of very transparent and very comfortable, you start building the ecosystem.
An extension question, Sarfaraz, is so I think Vijay, do you want to question? Have this question? You can unmute yourself, Vijay Gopal. Vijay Gopal, are you here? Yeah, you can have this question to either Sarfaraz or Kashyap. Go ahead, please.
Hello, sir. Thanks for giving me opportunity to ask a question.
Yeah.
Actually, I have an idea, sir. But I'm a beginner. But I don't know how to evaluate an idea. How to do a market research. Can you suggest me any methods to do any market research and about my idea?
Yeah. So see, the market research is one of the very important aspect, and the main important thing from where you can do the market research is to go into the field. Okay. So for example, if your product, can you tell me what actually is your product about, or the niche industry which it is, Vijay?
My idea is a startup, sir. It's a service.
Sorry?
It's a service based.
It's a service based, right? So you have to do the market research in two aspects. One, in the aspect of the demand or the problem, right? So if you think this is a problem or a gap in the market, you have to go and meet people and you have to tell them that planning such and such kind of service, will you be comfortable having that? So once you do the survey with at least 1,000, 1,500 or 2,000 people, you start the survey with your friends, then you move to your relatives, then you move to your distant relatives, then you move to your college, then you move to your universities, and you interact with a lot of people, you get their feedback. And in this survey, what you would actually get the most important thing, that a lot of people will become your early adapters, right? So they will be their customers once you launch the service. So you have to do the field survey for the demand in the market. The second survey which you need to do, or the research which you need to do, is the existing market, right? So there can be existing market, maybe online, maybe offline. Believe me, when I started my first startup, Dumpin Recyclers, so it was in waste management, and I thought that nobody is there in waste management. But with time, I found that there are a lot of people who were doing the same thing. You might not find them initially in the online Google search, but when you will go into the field, you will find a lot of people doing the same thing, right? So for that, you have to go to the field, you have to every day work on the online searching, so that you understand the alternatives, you understand the existing industry. Then you work upon the price segment, right? So once you know these are the solutions in the market, once you know, yes, people really need this kind of solution, then you go to the people whom you approached and talked about the solution, that what amount do you think that people you could pay for this service, right? So you ask the customers, you see the prices of the existing alternatives, and then you decide what you want to have as your cost.
Right. All right, Sarfaraz. I think. What's your take on this, Kashyap? Quick one, just 2 minutes.
I mean, to add to what you said, there are two dimensions here. One is how quickly can you sell, the product. So what I mean by this is, you have an idea, and you would take a lead time to make an MVP, I mean, a minimum viable product, or whatever it needs to sell to your customers. So since you said it's a services idea, I would just like to ask you a question, a follow-up question on, like, what is stopping you to kind of make money today, like, for your service, and what else do you need to invest on to be able to make money, and how much time, lead time does it take? That's the first question you need to ask. Second, what are your key assumptions, right? Whatever survey or whatever market research you do, I think will be only valid if your assumptions are appropriate. So if your assumption is not in the right direction, that means you assume that probably you can sell to the entire market. That is segmentation. You assume that your size of market is big enough, whereas it is not. So you have to be absolutely clear on those assumptions. So what I would do typically is write down your complete product thesis. Right, how you write your thesis in your education. You can write your product thesis, which is a one pager of your entire value proposition perhaps, and everything around the product. And then you write down what are your key assumptions, like what are those things that you need to validate. Based on that, you